Okay. All right, Casey, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll go ahead and let you take over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Again, as Jenny mentioned, my name is Casey Jaekle. I'm the Client Services Manager for Altruit Home Care. And I today wanted to just kind of share a little bit of my story as it relates to how I got into caregiving, as well as how dementia care specifically has become kind of like my passion, my purpose, and partly as to why I'm involved in with Altruit Home Care. So I'm going to share my screen just a little bit. So just give me 1 second. Please be patient with me. Um, here. Oh, sorry. Not too good with the technical stuff, so give me 1 second. Okay, can everyone see the slide there?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so again, I was born and raised here in Northwest Huntsville. I went to Tuskegee University. Have about 20 years of experience in senior living. So what I wanted to do was just kind of share my family ties. So these are both my maternal and paternal grandparents. So this is my grandmother, Kiyomi, who essentially was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was a very young child. And as it relates to her, the Alzheimer's disease worked pretty rapidly, and she was diagnosed, I believe, in 1981 and then passed in 1984. Um, so this is my grandfather here in the far bottom left-hand corner. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and then later developed dementia-related symptoms. And he is the reason why I became a family caregiver. This is a picture of me and him here together when I went to visit him during COVID. And then this is also when me and my brothers moved him from where he was living into a memory care facility. So I wanted to share kind of those personal pictures just in relation to um, how I got started and why this is such an important topic for me. So one of the things Jenny had mentioned is that you all as caregivers, are very interested in just kind of understanding and learning more about how to become the best caregiver that you can be, to care for your loved ones the best way possible. So I figured one of the best ways to do that is kind of talk about, as it relates to dementia care, the 5 ways the brain takes in data. So what I wanted to do is kind of start with what I would call the 5 factors. So you have smell, taste, vision, touch and feel, and hearing or auditory, right? So I wanted to start with the smell aspect first, or the smell sense. So when we talk about smells, we talk about detecting, different kinds of tiny odor molecules that float through the air, which send signals to the brain, right? So when we're looking at smell, there's actually, as it relates to safety, 5 safety smells. And those are like chemical smells, the smells of mold, burning smoke, urine, fecal matter, things like that, spoiled food. And when you look at brain change as it relates to smell, the wiring between the smell senses and the brain kind of get kind of turned upside down, or kind of the wires go on the fritz as it relates to dementia and how it affects the smell of the sense of the smell, excuse me. And then when I want to look at taste, so taste involves more than just the tongue. It's the overall flavor perception, which is a combination of taste, smell, texture, and temperature, right? So when we look at taste, there's those 5 taste bud senses, right? So you have sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and the umami, right? The umami is kind of like that meaty, flavorful, savory type of taste, right? So then we look at the things such as visual. So everybody, I want you to put a thumb up in the air, right? Be an artist. Visual. Visual is the most primary method for humans to take in data. There's a huge amount of your brain devoted to visual processing. However, what I want you to understand and really pay attention to is that our eyes are located in the front of our face, of course, but interestingly, visual processing occurs in the back of the brain in the occipital lobe. So I want everybody, if you can, take your hand and put it on the back of your head, and that's where your occipital lobe is. So now there's quite a bit of space, right, between the eyes and the occipital lobe, excuse me, and there's wires that connect between the eyes and the occipital lobe. And during the dementia process, those wires kind of go on the fritz a little bit. And so when the wiring goes on the fritz, those wires eventually do die. And the typical process for visual input is you're looking at it through your two eyes, you're looking at the image is flipped upside down, and it processes through the occipital lobe for you to know exactly what you're kind of looking at, right? One thing I want to point out is this is the most powerful method of sensory input. So when you think about sensory input as it relates to vision, first we see something, then we do something, right? That's when we think about what to do next. And so the next sense that I'm going to talk about is auditory. So this is the most complicated and takes up a lot of the brain space as it relates to auditory. So when we hear something, what do we immediately do? We look to see what it is, right? So when it comes to dementia, it's visual, then auditory. And there's a reason why I'm explaining it in this particular, order as it relates to dementia care. So people living with dementia pay more attention to and feel they get more value out of what they see um, versus what they hear. So if you're having a conversation with your loved one who is living with dementia, it is most likely that they're paying very close attention to how you're saying something versus the content of what you're saying. Um, and here's the thing, I want everybody to do this, right? Everybody to do this because as caregivers, we tend to talk way too much. We try to over explain. We try to get people who are living with dementia or dealing with brain change to kind of understand what it is that we're trying to communicate. And most of the time, the person is paying attention to how it's being said, not what is being said. When we look at the brain as it relates to auditory input, there's two temporal lobes. There's a left side and a right side. The left side does all the language processing, speech production, reading comprehension, things like that. And then the right side deals with more of the nonverbal processing, like your music, your art, your creativity. But it's also where your sex talk, your racial slurs, your curse words, and all those things are being housed. So when we look at this study of dementia, dementia tends to attack the brain asymmetrically, which means that it is starting most likely on the left side, and then it works its way to the right side. So again, on the left side of your brain, there's speech production, language processing, reading comprehension, things like that, and then it'll slowly but surely move over to the right side. So oftentimes, if you're having a conversation with someone living with dementia, it could look like, hey, they might experience what's called circumlocution, where they're trying to find the right word to use, or it's kind of like word salad. They can't really figure that out. But yet, if you turn on their favorite song, they can sing every word perfectly. And that is because of how the brain change is occurring as it relates to the dementia. So, very important to kind of keep that in mind. So, again, we've talked about smell, we've talked about taste, we've talked about vision, and we've now talked about auditory. And the other one I want to talk about is touch and feel. So, touch and feel is like your sensory motor skills, right? So you do something, you feel something, you do more of it if you like it, you don't do more of it if you don't like it, right? So one of the biggest challenges as it relates to dementia is it robs the person of their specific skill as it relates to sensory motor. And what I mean by that is if you've ever been doing something and you've gotten startled, and I think we'd all agree that, hey, we've all been startled or been frightened by something before. And you have to ask yourself, well, how come it frightened me or what startled me? And it's because you didn't see it, You didn't know it was coming. You didn't know where it was coming from. And so that is actually called an open circuit in the brain. And what that means is, um, sorry, what that means is that as it relates to a open circuit means that when something happens, um, if you close your eyes and if you close your eyes and you received the circuit as it relates to being startled, then that ultimately will look like sorry, uh, you didn't receive the signals to the brain. And so an interesting fact when it relates to sensory motor is that there's pressure to the palm of the hand that can be comforting. There's pressure receptors in your hand that can help reduce cortisol levels from anxiety or stress and bring a sense of security. So anytime a person is experiencing challenges with being frightened or afraid, it's always important to maybe hold their hand and apply pressure to give them that safety and that comfort. So what I wanted to do next is kind of talk about, here's kind of a visual outline of the brain, and you kind of look at the different sections of it. So you have the frontal temporal lobe, which deals with the executive functioning, problem solving, things like that. You have the occipital lobe, which talks about the vision and balance. And you have of course, this is kind of a side view. So you have the temporal lobes here, and then you also have the parietal lobe up here at the top here. So I'll stop kind of sharing my screen. And I wanted to just kind of take a moment to see if anyone specifically has any questions as it relates to those five senses for the human brain.
You can feel free to either unmute or put it into the chat box if you have questions.
Okay. So, Jenny, what I'd like to do now is I'm going to share a quick video from Teepa Snow as it relates to the positive approach to care, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would just make sure, I think there might be a setting that you have to click to be sure the sound comes through. So if it doesn't come through, I can help walk you through that.
Okay.
First skill you're going to really focus in on.
You all hear the sound?
Yes.
Is
Okay.
how do you approach somebody so that you can get connected so you can do anything. So turn and face your partner in your chairs. Now, what's the first way we want to connect? Visually, we want to get them paying attention to us visually. Well, in order to do that, you need to understand what skill they have and what they've lost. Here's what I want you to do. Everybody do this carefully so don't whack each other. Look straight ahead and wiggle your fingers out to the side. While you're looking straight ahead, what you're doing is you're being curious out in front. Off to the side, what you have is peripheral awareness for safety issues. This is your peripheral awareness. If you're a 20-year-old, you may very well be able to notice your fingers wiggling while you're looking straight ahead. If you're not a 20-year-old or you're stressed out, you're going to have to bring them forward so you can find them. So a 20-year-old who's not stressed has a full 180 of awareness with about a 145 of actual visual. Because you can't see the edge, you just notice things and it makes you turn and look. This is your safety vision. This is the curiosity vision. People with dementia are going to lose what first? Safety. Even with normal aging. Do the 20-year-old, 180, come in 45 degrees on each side and make a circle. By the time you're 75 without dementia, because of speed changes, in processing.
Froze up on this end.
Yeah, I just messaged Casey, let him know he froze up. We'll give him a minute. Oh, I think he fell out. He disconnected on accident. We'll give him a minute, see if he pops back on. There he is.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Oh, he froze again.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, yes.
All right. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Let me see if I can reshare it. If not, then I will just kind of go back.
By 75, you're not going to catch yourself, and you're going to have the wrist fractures, the elbow tear outs, the rotator cuff tears, the break the humeral, bust your knees up, tear up your ankle, or break your hip. Normal aging, vision change. Nobody tells us about it or teaches us how to compensate. So go to 45. This is normal at 75. Now, if you check this brain up here, this, by the way, is a 20-year-old with no brain disease over there on your left, and an 80-year-old with no brain disease, and you already see a difference in visual processing. They can't take in as much data, guys. That's just how it is. We're slower to process visual data. Take a look at the bottom there and notice changes. Whoa, much more significant changes. So between normal aging, because those people are the same age, they're just have dementia or don't. Go to the 45 off the, we've already lost 45 with normal aging. I want you to come in about 20 more degrees and create a circle. This is the visual field of somebody in early stage dementia, in which case only 7 out of 10 of them do not yet have a diagnosis. Only 3 out of 10 have been diagnosed under current conditions. So here's what I want you to realize. What they have is a term I call diving mask vision. So I want you to call it scuba vision. Go ahead, say scuba vision. Okay, so put on the scuba mask. What it mostly does is block the sides, the top, but you have an open area right over your nose. Okay? Now, here's what I want you to do, one at a time. One of you drop your hands because you're going to approach the person. And what I want you to do is, caregiver, get directly in front of them at arm's length, face to face. Face your person front on at arm's length with their scuba vision. Now take off the scuba vision and notice how different it is when you do not have somebody taking up your whole visual field. Remove your scuba. Does it feel different? Do it again. Let the other person do it. Hey. Remove it. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Without realizing it, when you get in front of a person who might have dementia and you lean in so that they can see you clearly, you are attacking them visually because of the limitations in vision. They think you're blocking them in and there's no way out. You don't see it that way because you don't have dementia. You can see the whole person. So you're thinking, I don't know why she's acting like that. Stand it or sit in front of your person, and the term for this is called confrontational stance. Say it, confrontational. You're confronting them. Is that what you meant? What did you want to do? Help? Okay, so this is what you're going to do. Here she is, and I want to talk to her. You put your scuba on. I am going to step to the side, keep my face facing her, but turn my shoulder outward. Drop the vision, and there's no big difference. Try it, because I want you to realize this term, supported stance. confrontational. The only difference was my shoulder. When I cued her visually that you could get out, she relaxed because I'm in support, not in confrontation. Try it. Here's the next change in vision. I want you to take your scuba vision. Disease gets worse. Now I'm in mid-stage. Take your hands out here. This was scuba. Bring it in so your hands line up with your shoulders, approximately 12 to 18 inches across, and create a circle. This is now my visual field. So between early to middle stage, I am down to approximately 12 to 18 inches of a visual circle. That's all I can process. I can't handle more data. I've got to limit the incoming, and I keep the middle because that's my curiosity thing, and I'm less aware of the world around. So put on the binoculars now. Now go back to the diving mask, drop down to the binoculars. So put on your binoculars. Now, this is the visual field you have. Now, person get in front of the individual, smile at them. Make sure you're at arm's length. You want to be right at arm's length, and stick your hand out at them. Stick your hand out at them. Stick your hand out at them. How do you go? Would you quit with the hand already? Because what do you realize now that I've told you what's going on here? They're thinking you're just going to be social, and all of a sudden, when you do anything, it came out of nowhere, and they're immediate flight, fight, fright. You're the one that started it because they did not see what you showed them because it was out of their range. So here's the rule. Because I know she might be all the way to mid-stage, and she still might just now be getting her dementia diagnosis, although people have been wondering for a while. What we don't talk about is the change in vision. Nobody talks about that stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to quit moving when we're double arm's length away. And the reason is that gives her a chance at double arm's length away, she can see a fair amount of me. If I'm up here, I've eliminated a lot of my cueing. And it also is threatening her. So I'm going to stop here. So I know she's in the center field here. She's got me. I'm going to give her a high sign. Hand near your face. Here's another heads up. Change your name tag so it's up on your right shoulder. The reason is what I want her to do is see my hand, travel up here, find my name tag, go to my face. I'm increasing odds that I'm going to give her the information that she wants when she goes to name my name. And I'll give her my name, but this is a heads up. There's no point in putting it over here. She's not going to notice it once we get going. Don't put it down here, or you're going to draw her eye to where you don't want her to be. And then the next thing she might do is reach out and try to touch and see what it feels like right there. So here we go. I move in. And the tricky part is getting used to it. Hey, now what did I do right here? I gave her a high sign that said, look, my hand. And then I offered her my hand. Her eye could track that because I'm far enough away for her to track it. I'll know whether or not she tracked it if she reaches out and offers me her hand. Hand under hand, sideways. And now we're ready for an interaction. It's called positive physical approach. It uses everything we've learned so far, puts it together, and allows us to be in the same place at the same time, and her distress level will be quite low. She's allowed to give me feedback. If she doesn't offer her hand, should I keep moving into her space? Because she just told me, stay out. So what I'm going to do, rather than move forward, is turn my body sideways out here. Because I don't know what else has happened today. I don't have to how threatened she feels. I can talk from here.
I wanted to pause there and just kind of show a short snippet of that video. And the reason why I chose that specific snippet of the video is because I think oftentimes as caregivers, we're always trying to find the best ways, perhaps. I know I did when I was caring for my grandfather. What was the best way to try to approach him and, as much as possible, create as many positive interactions as I could? Um, and so I thought it was very insightful and thoughtful with respect to the things that we talked about with the 5 ways the human brain takes in data as it relates to like visual, auditory, touch and feel, or sensory motor, things like that, and really trying to focus in on as it relates to the vision changes. A lot of people don't talk about the vision change as it relates to dementia care. And so, as she talked about with the scuba mask and the binoculars, as the visual field changes, oftentimes when we're creating those interactions with people living with dementia, we don't pay attention as how it relates to the interaction when we go to then touch them, right? So how many of us have been working, working with someone or caring for someone living with dementia, and you have the smiling and the nodding and everything is good as far as the conversation is concerned, but then when you go in to reach in to perhaps touch them to maybe help them get dressed or to fix something on their clothing or what have you, then the response could be more resistant, right? The agitation, the anger, the frustration tends to occur, and a lot of that can be indicative of the fact that we did not be socially aware of their visual changes in their visual field. So I thought that would be very important to kind of show that snippet of the video, as well as kind of tie in some of those other aspects of essentially the 5 senses or the 5 ways the human brain takes in data, which I thought would be uh, hopefully pretty beneficial for caregivers. Um, the other thing I wanted to just kind of mention as it relates to our home care agency, our caregivers are taught these very same techniques. So when we talk about creating positive interactions with people, we start with kind of the waving and then extending of the hand to do a handshake, because throughout your lifetime, how many of us know how to shake hands, right? So that is an indicative first person action or response to when, oh, if someone sticks their hands out toward me, then I'm inclined, or at least I feel comfortable and are mentally aware that I can shake their hand. So we use that as a tool to indicate whether they are comfortable being touched. Because just like in the video, there are times where you just need to have a conversation. The person who you're talking to living with dementia did not necessarily anticipate that you are then going to touch them, right? And so as caregivers, whether personal or professional, we tend to operate with that notion of it's okay for me to touch you, but is it really, when you don't really know if you were given that permission by that person? So I always tell the caregivers when we do trainings and other things like that, imagine if you were in a place and someone just walked up to you and they smiled and they nodded, and maybe you had a decent somewhat of a conversation to where you're smiling and nodding, and then they reached out and touched you. You didn't give them permission to do so. You're probably startled, which then goes back to that open brain circuit that we were talking about earlier. And you didn't see it or know when it was coming. And I'm sure that would make you feel uncomfortable, or perhaps in some instances, maybe even give a right hook. I don't know. But it's one of those things as it relates to we have to be socially aware of of when we're creating these kinds of interactions. And as caregivers, we're so responsible for so many other things. We're not just responsible for our loved one, but we also have to be accountable and responsible for how we interact with our loved one as well. And so those pieces of information I do hope was helpful as it relates to how you can create some positive interactions with your loved one, whether they are experiencing something like a form of dementia, like Alzheimer's, or maybe just experiencing some kind of cognitive challenge, whether it was due to maybe they had a stroke or something like that. Um, but I do find extreme value in helping people understand how to be more socially aware as it relates to creating those positive interactions for folks. In addition to this type of training that we provide our caregivers, we do specialize specifically in dementia care. So we not only use these training techniques, but we also are very focused as it relates to customizing and building our service plans to the attention to details for our specific clients. What I mean by that is when I was a caregiver for my grandfather, um, there's a difference between being a grandson and a caregiver, right? And you have to learn how those two worlds marry. I was not the best at doing so, so I had to learn how to become a caregiver. One of the things I learned about my grandfather when I was taking care of him was that man loved to do three things. He liked to play chess, he liked to watch the stocks on the ticker on the news channel, and he liked to have gin martinis every day at 4:30, right? So at the same time that I had to learn how to become a caregiver to him, I also had to learn how to become a bartender. Why? Because that was what was important to him. Those things is what caregiving is all about, giving more of ourselves to give to other people. That's where the name altruist stems from, the word altruism, right? The selfless concern for the welfare and well-being of other people. And so when we look at the attention to details of what's important for for that particular individual that we're caring for, whether it's in a professional setting, excuse me, or a personal setting, what are those details that make that person feel whole? For my grandfather, it was those three things. For some of your loved ones, it could be completely different. But it's important to really tap in to those things to really try to create the best possible care interactions and experiences as possible. The other thing I would certainly recommend, just from a provider standpoint, as well as a personal caregiver standpoint, is documenting as much as you can. Because especially if you're early on in the stages of this disease process and you're kind of a new caregiver to this world and you can't really understand why mom does what she does or dad does what he does or your loved one in general as it relates to their routine, documentation is so important and critical because then you can start to build a roadmap of, okay, they're experiencing this. Maybe it's related to time and space. Maybe it's related to some kind of trigger. Maybe it's related to a particular activity or event that they may not want to be a part of or that they really enjoy, whether it's something that's positive for them or something that could be affecting their overall mood and behavior in a negative way. Documentation is very important and I think pretty critical. Um, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else as it relates to just trying to be a resource. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I just want to try to help people as much as possible as it relates to creating positive interactions. I am a certified independent trainer with the Teepa Snow organization. I personally go all over the Huntsville and surrounding area community, whether it's the senior centers, churches and other places, even doctor's offices. We've done trainings at Huntsville Hospital and really trying to just kind of help educate people as much as possible as to how do we create those positive interactions. And I will tell you um, that the most important thing to keep in mind of is those 5 ways the human brain takes in data. Because again, when you think about visual changes, we talked about that. When you think about the auditory changes, hey, they're paying more closer attention to how you're saying it versus what you're saying, right? That's very critical. When you talk about sensory motor and their ability to um, process instructions, right? Like if I could think of some homework for folks, and we've done this with other folks before, is the next time you have to go to the bathroom, I want you to make a list of each individual step that your brain processes in order to go and use the bathroom successfully, right? When you really stop and think about that, there's a lot of your parietal lobe, sensory motor, that you have to incorporate in order to execute something that many of us on this call take advantage of on a regular basis because it's so easy to do. It's just like breathing, right? But for someone living with dementia, or another form of brain change, we have to think about that. We have to reassess and figure out what is the best way to help them with this task or to guide them successfully in order to create a positive interaction. Because how many times as caregivers have we tried to execute a particular activity with our loved one living with dementia and it go completely south because maybe we said the wrong thing or we approached it in the wrong manner. And it's not because we chose to upset our loved one that day, it's because we didn't know. So you have to be kind to yourself, but you also, and I know that's easier said than done, you also have to continue to be patient with the person whom you're caring for. So I want to be very respectful of time and try to leave some space for questions so I can assist and be a resource to people as much as possible. So I'll just kind of pause there. And Jenny, you're more than welcome to kind of take over, if you will.
Oh, so you may have to do my job, Casey? Ugh. I'm just teasing. Thank you so much for that information. So since we are going to swap over to the Q&A portion, I will go ahead and end the recording now. And some of you have already asked in the chat when this will be available. So once Zoom does its thing, we will be able to post this on our website, alabamarespite.org. So that'll usually take place Monday. But you can also find it on our YouTube channel as well. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.